Maxi was released all the way back in 2011. While the card didn't see competitive play immediately, it is considered to be one of the best, if not the best hand trap of all time nowadays, eventually leading to its ban in the TCG in 2018. But should Maxi stay banned, or is it a fine card to be legal to help with the current problems that a lot of players have with modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is crazy turn 1 combos? With Master Duel being released a few months ago and Maxi being at 3 there, I have now experienced both sides in modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, both playing with and without Maxi, and had this discussion pop up a lot, especially during my Twitch streams, so I figured what better way to start off a YouTube channel than trying to settle this debate. So in this video, I'm going to give my opinion on the question, should Maxi be banned or should it be legal? Now, you might ask yourself, who is this guy and why should I even listen to his opinion about Yu-Gi-Oh? Fair question. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Joshua Schmidt. I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively for well over 15 years now. And when I say competitively, I do mean very competitively. I have won 2 YCSs. I have topped over 30 premier events, and I mean actual premier events, not ARGs. And I have participated in the World Championship 4 times, including a 3rd place finish in 2012. Not trying to brag here, just goes to show that when it comes to competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I do have a thing or two to say, and I do have a lot of experience, and I feel like that is why some people might want to hear my opinion on this matter. But enough about that, let us start to get into the topic. I think when discussing Maxi, we need to talk about how do we want Yu-Gi-Oh! To be like fundamentally, and we're also going to have to talk about, like I already mentioned, the modern combo decks and whether we like their playstyle or not. And when I say combo decks, it's going to be important to make a distinction here between 2 very different types of combo decks, which I'm going to refer to as fair and unfair combo decks. You probably know what I mean by this, but let me still clarify just to make sure. Fair combo decks are decks that have a lot of steps, do complex combos on their first turn, probably include a bunch of special summons, but their end boards are beatable. A good example here would be decks like Salamangreat, decks like Orchist once Nightmare Mermaid was banned, decks like PK once Rongo was banned. Decks where their first turn takes quite a while, they special summon quite a bit, not easy to pilot, but their end boards are beatable without forcing the opponent to draw a bunch of hand traps. Regular hands can beat them. Now, unfair combo decks, you probably also know what I'm talking about here. But those are decks that are purely designed to win the game, decide the game on turn 1 by putting up insane boards. There's been multiple examples of this throughout Yu-Gi-Oh! History. Since the Master Duel format is currently present, I'm going to use Drytron, Adamancipator, and any deck that summons VFD, like Virtual World, as an example here. Decks that just play the game on the first turn for like 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, and if they don't get stopped, the player going second will not have a chance to win the game. With that out of the way, let's establish what I think an ideal format of Yu-Gi-Oh! Should look like. And of course I know this is highly subjective, so I'm going to try and keep it as broad as possible so that we can possibly agree on all these things. And it's just 3 points. Point number 1, skill should matter. Meaning the better player should have a higher chance of winning a game than a worse player. Number 2, the games should not be decided on turn 1. Simple as that. Number 3, the player going second should have a realistic chance of winning the game without being forced to draw an absurd amount of hand traps. Okay, can we agree on these 3 points? I hope so. And if not, you might as well stop watching now and go play Solitaire, because you're probably not going to like and are probably not going to agree with the stuff that I'm saying in the rest of this video. Note that I did not mention anything about how fast-paced a game should be, how long a turn should last, any of these things. And also note that specifically the goal is not to go back to playing older formats like Goat Control or Hat or even Necros, Dragon Rulers, whatever, which people might find fun, but I am also aware and I'm also a fan of the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a constantly changing game. And I'm a huge fan of complex combo decks. I think that fair combo decks allow for a huge amount of skill expression by both players, while unfair combo decks simply don't do that. Unfair combo decks have a lot of skill expression by the player executing the combo, but the player watching and occasionally maybe dropping a hand trap is usually not involved in the game. Alright, lots of groundwork out of the way, and we haven't talked about Maxi all that much yet, but trust me, we're going to need this going forward. And I hope you're still watching, because that means you probably agree, and we can go off of this when we can boil down this Maxi debate to two very essential questions now. Question number one is, does Maxi help us move in that direction of that ideal format? Now, why are we asking this question? Well, simply because if the answer to this is yes, it is a strong indicator that we want Maxi to be legal. As simple as that. Question number two is then, is Maxi necessary for that ideal format, or can we have this without Maxi? Because what I'm not even going to try and argue against is that Maxi is broken. Yes, Maxi is broken. However, broken does not necessarily mean that it should be banned. Broken does not mean bad. We've had a good amount of formats where cards were arguably broken relative to the card level at the time, like Necros, Dragon Rulers. All these formats were great, and the list goes on. The thing about broken things is that as long as both players have access to them, it balances out. And the only question is then, what kind of play patterns does it induce? Is it fun to play with? Is it fun to play against? Does it allow for skill expression? So on and so forth. And only then can you say, okay, this thing is broken and is bad for the game, or this thing is broken and is not bad for the game. Maxi being broken does not mean it should be banned. However, if we can answer the second question with a no, Maxi is not necessary to have a great format, I can definitely see a good argument for Maxi staying banned or being banned, even if it would be fine, because something being broken and not being necessary, that's just a great mix for something to land on the ban list. So in order to answer these questions, let's look at what does Maxi do to a format? What happens when Maxi is legal? The card is clearly designed to stop excessive special summoning, and we all know that these unfair combo decks typically just end their turn when a Maxi is being dropped on them, and since these decks typically don't have any backup plans for a longer game, like no traps to like back up a mediocre board or anything, they just try to vomit their entire hand onto the board, they usually end up losing the game if they get Max Seed. Now, does Maxi do what it's designed to do? Does it stop these decks from seeing play? At first glance, the answer is no. By simply looking at the current Master Duel meta and also the OCG. However, I'm going to focus on Master Duel because that's what I have more experience in. Looking at that meta game, and I have pulled up a Master Duel meta tier list here. Drytron, Adamancipator, Virtual World, all three represented in the highest tiers of the game. Whether they're the best deck in the game or not is arguable. What's not arguable is that they are good and they are being played a lot. And there are a bunch more combo decks out there just waiting to take their place as soon as they get weakened by a potential upcoming ban list. So does this already conclude the debate? Is the answer just no? Does Maxi just not help? Does it just not change anything? And it's not as simple as that. So why does Maxi being legal not stop these decks from seeing success? I personally believe that the reason that these decks seemingly don't care about Maxi being legal in the format is that Maxi simply doesn't resolve often enough. The main culprits here are obviously Called by the Grave, Crossout Designator, and Ash Blossom. There are other niche ways to negate Maxi, like an occasional Gamma, Herald of the Orange Light, or Koa Chimero Guardian, but in general, it really is just those three. And I firmly believe that if Maxi resolved more often, people would eventually stop even using unfair combo decks because they would simply not win enough with them. And there is historical evidence for this in Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, Maxi was legal for a long time, and you never heard about insane combo decks really being a problem until Maxx got banned. These decks existed, but they simply didn't have a high expected win rate. And while I'm talking about win rate, let's put this into a little bit of statistical perspective. I mean, I know, yay, statistics, but it is important when we talk about this topic. So because you might not be fully aware of how often Maxx actually gets negated, if you put 3 Crossout, 2 Called By, and 3 Ash into your combo deck, which is the current Master Duel banlist situation, you have a 69% chance of opening at least 1 out to Maxx.
Nice.
No, not nice. I mean, this doesn't include the chance of also having to open your combo next to them, but this is just to give you a rough idea, you know, especially if you compare this to the measly 33% of even opening Maxx as the player going second in the first place. So what this means is you'll open Maxx roughly every third game, but it gets negated way more than 50% of the time, which is terrible, really. Just to make this clear, we do not want this to happen. We don't want Maxx to be negated so consistently, because it just doesn't force people to respect it then. I've heard this take a lot when I've been discussing this on stream, and this is really the worst take of them all, when people say Maxx is fine because there are outs to it. That really, there's hard to put into words how bad of a take this is, really, because the only purpose of Maxx is to stop combo from existing. We don't want these decks to see play. We've established this. And if Maxx would resolve consistently, these decks would actually have to respect it. You know, these players would have to overthink it if every third game going first they couldn't even play because of Maxx, you know. But as a matter of fact, this is not the case. They can just ignore Maxx. All that this does is it adds another layer of luck, of variance to these already stupidly luck-based combo decks of having to go first, having to open your combo. Now there's an additional layer of, you know, does the opponent draw Maxx? If so, do I win the next coin flip in a row to also open an out to it? And it just completely eliminates, you know, skill expression. At this point, it's just an opening hand comparison without much interaction at all. Now, I'm not saying Maxx should resolve every single time, because I am actually a fan of the card design of Ash Blossom, but I personally think that Called by the Grave and Crossout Designator are 2 of the worst designed cards ever. Very, very toxic, because hand traps are meant to exactly do that, like stop these unfair decks from going first so well, and just introducing cards that add 1-to-1 outs and that have really no other purpose. I mean, of course, sometimes you'd use your Called by the Grave and Crossout in other ways, but 90% plus, these are just being used to eliminate the small bit of interaction that even exists when you go second. So yes, I believe Called by the Grave and Crossout Designator should be banned. This is probably not realistic, but just going from this theory right here, it would lead to a much better format, because I actually think that if Maxx resolved very consistently, and I mean, this is hypothetical because we haven't had the situation in modern Yu-Gi-Oh yet where Maxx was legal and Called by and Crossout didn't exist. But I believe if that was the case, that the unfair combo decks would eventually stop seeing competitive play. I mean, some people would probably still try, but the expected win rate of these decks would simply not justify bringing them at very high levels of competitive play. And people would have to resort to fairer options. I mean, a lot of players are already preferring, you know, Tri-Brigade over these combo decks, even with the possibility of running Crossout and Called by an Ash. Which just goes to support this theory that these decks might completely vanish if Called by and Crossout go. All of this may sound like I'm a huge fan of Maxx, and I mean, all of this does suggest that Maxx would indeed help the format quite a bit if it actually was given the chance to resolve. But as a little bit of a counter argument here, it would also definitely destroy a lot of fair combo decks, which, like I said before, I actually like Salamangrate, like Orchest, like PK, without Rongo, of course. But these decks would also completely get destroyed by the fact that Maxi always resolves. And to be fair though, these decks already don't really see play, right? Because if you play a deck that loses to Maxi, why aren't you doing like Drytron, Adamancipator combos in the first place? And it is what most people are doing. So are we really losing anything here if these decks already aren't really playable? And but yes, it would suck for fans of these decks, and I personally am a fan of these decks. So I acknowledge that drawback of having a consistently resolving Maxi in the game. I think at this point we can answer the first question with a yes. At least in my opinion, Maxi would help us move in a direction of a healthy format if it resolved consistently. That is a necessity for this to work out, even just in theory. And we see this in practice. Maxi does not help if there are an absurd amount of ways to counter it. But is Maxi necessary? Because, like I said, having Maxi in the format comes with drawbacks, comes with eliminating a bunch of decks that, you know, did nothing wrong.
I did nothing wrong, man. I did nothing wrong whatsoever.
And if Maxi wasn't necessary, if we could have a great game, great format without the unfair combo decks, but keep the fair combo decks, I would actually prefer for Maxi to be banned for exactly that reason, you know, keeping the fair combo decks alive. The very short answer to this second question of is Maxi necessary is no. And it's a very obvious answer. I mean, there's an obvious solution here. If they just banned everything that enables unfair combos, we have no need for Maxi. It does sound simple as that, but it really isn't as simple in practice. And I think why this is so hard becomes clear when we look at what would have to be done, even just right now. I mean, it's not even enough to address Adamancipator, Virtual World, Drytron, Hulk, Auroradon. All of this could be done, and then you would still probably have combo decks immediately taking their place. You know, Spiral or whatnot would probably just feast on the meta without Maxi in that case. And then even if they purged the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Of everything that even is the slightest bit of unfair and has combo potential, you would still have the issue with new stuff that comes out. I mean, we consistently see this because Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't have a rotation. We consistently have new cards that suddenly create crazy combos with old cards, and or just are inherently designed to power creep what already exists, and therefore get released and just run rampant in the format until the next ban list. And especially in the TCG, this is an issue because the cards are being designed by people in the OCG with Maxi in mind because they have Maxi. And then when we get them to the TCG where we don't even have Maxi as like a little bit of a safety net to protect us from newly released combos before they can be addressed in a ban list, they just hit our format with full force. I mean, look at what's going on in TCG right now. People are playing 60 card engine piles just to, you know, put any two monsters on the board, to go Hulk, to go Scythe, to go DPE, to go anything. And then you have this Brave engine, which without Maxi in the format, there really is no reason to not put the Brave engine into pretty much any deck, to just go with a one card Omni Negate. That the only drawback is that it requires a bunch of special summons, which doesn't really matter. And it is just very, very hard to balance a game like that on release. They would not only have to create a really, really good ban list, and I mean, the TCG hasn't even been that bad with the ban lists, but it's just also an issue of card design needs to be incredibly on point and incredibly good. And at this point, we have to ask ourselves, is this realistic? You know, do we want to take this risk of having Maxi banned and always relying on, you know, insane balancing both by the ban list team and the card design team? So when I say Maxi is not necessary to have a good format, I believe this is true, but this comes with a lot of, you know, asterisks and a lot of ifs. And I personally think that it is a little bit riskier than just having Maxi legal. But it would be possible. I can't deny that impeccable ban list work and balancing work and great design, card design choices would enable a great game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Without Maxi, no doubt. So to come to a conclusion here, because I've been rambling for quite a while now, what do I think would be the ideal solution? What do I take away from this discussion? Ideally, we would have great card design and great ban list balancing, and we wouldn't even need Maxi. However, being realistic, I think having Maxi in the format is a good thing. I prefer having Maxi and being, a little bit safer from slip-ups in card design or like oversights when making a ban list. But I hate nothing else in the format right now more than the fact that Maxi can just be ignored by these combo decks, right? It's like the worst mix is to have the unfair stuff in the game and give them ways to ignore Maxi. I think that's just a recipe for disaster, and that is really what we need to solve. I do believe we can have a great format with Maxi in there as long as Maxi actually impacts the win rates of these unfair combo decks. Alright, I hope this didn't turn out too long. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you took something away from the discussion. And if you did, let me know in the comments below. I'd appreciate any feedback, as I'm just starting with YouTube. I'd appreciate if you let me know what I can improve. And potentially, if you like my content, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading more in the future. And also definitely check out the Twitch link in the description below, because I am live constantly since Master Duel came out. Been having a great time with it, and I'd appreciate if you step by and discuss these things live with me. Other than that, nothing else to say. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and peace.